Aloha and welcome to this practice WOD called Digits Form. It's a kind of a complicated one, but not complicated in terms of really thinking, but just in terms of getting familiar with the play framework approach to dealing with forms. And there's a lot of minor stuff, but really with a repetition and just kind of going through the kinds of errors that you can make and figuring them out, I think you'll get comfortable with it pretty quick. Definitely before starting this, you want to make sure that you've watched this Playform screencast where I go over really very similar kinds of things. I was using Eclipse back then, so there were some differences, and we'll actually see some problems with IntelliJ. Maybe by the time you get to this module, they'll be fixed. I filed a bug report. We'll kind of see what happens. And you do need to have finished E41 because, as you can see, we've got the digits application up here, and we'll be modifying it to make the form actually do something. Okay, so as usual, I seem to have lost my application timer, so let me go find it again and bring it up. There it is. Okay, so we'll start. And we want to create a branch off our master called Form1. Oops, let's put our fingers on the right keys. Form1, branch. And now we switch to that branch. If this was the second time through, we'd call it Form2. The next thing is to create a Java backing class for the form data. Call this views.formdata.contactFormData. So what we can do here is if we click on the views link and then press new and select Java class, and then if we just say form data dot, they want this to be contact form data, what you'll see is that it automatically will create a subpackage within the views package to hold this. Okay, and of course we'll add it to Git. All right, and so let's kind of clean up the Java docs a little bit. The backing class for the contact form. And then again, this is, we want three public strings, first name, last name, and telephone. So we'll say public string, first name, and then we can do a command D and a option function delete, last name, and then a command D, and then an option delete, and telephone to get those. And probably want to add some Java docs, so the first name, these aren't the best, the last name, and the telephone number in XXX, XXX, XXXX format. Okay, and as we said before, normally I would hate to see these public instance variables, but that just turns out to be part of the way Play does things. Okay, so now we've got this backing form that is going to be holding the data that we're going to be going back and forth between the HTML representation and our views. We want to update the new contact view to take this form, views, form data, contact form data as a parameter. So that means basically we go up to this first line, and in there we're going to say contact form, and then we'll say form, and then we'll say views dot form data, and look, it even does completion for us. And it uses these crazy square brackets, which is what Scala uses for its parameterized types. Which is kind of strange, but I don't know, I didn't write Scala, so I just got to go along with what they did. And then, because we've done this, okay, what we now have to do is in application, we see that this is the wrong thing to have there. So now we want to pass in an empty instance of the form, views, form data, contact form data class. So the way we can do that is by saying form, and then this time we'll use the Java version. So and then this is just the special magic form data dot class. Okay. So that's just you just have to kind of almost memorize that that's the way the library works, is you have this form.form, and then you put the class instance of the form you're interested in constructing a form out of. You can see IntelliJ is smart enough to say, hey, hit option return, and I will import playdata.form for you, which is probably what you want, and it turns out that it is what we want, so we'll hit option return, and it'll do the import, and then the things go away. All right, now it's saying, hey, wait, we don't want to have, we don't want a string in here, we want to actually be passing form data. So obviously you want to do this, okay? Oops, type to return, okay? Here's where, unfortunately, all good things come to an end, because in fact, IntelliJ doesn't believe that form data is the right kind of form to pass, the right kind of object to pass to the render method, even though it absolutely is. I spent a couple hours today Googling. I've posted stuff to Stack Overflow. I posted a issue to the internal IntelliJ mailing list, because indeed, this is, this if I did activate or run, everything would be fine. It's not a question of this being incorrect. It's a question of their syntax highlighting, apparently not understanding when you're using the Scala API in your templates and you're using the Java API in your controller. I don't know. It's very frustrating. I hoped I could fix it for you, but for the time being, it looks like in the controller class, unless they fix it before you get to this module, we're going to be dealing with these junk little red underlines. So anyway, that's the deal. Or maybe I made some mistake that I can't understand, but I don't think so. Okay, and then we want to add a new action in the controller to handle a post request. So the way we're going to do that is we're going to say public static result post contact. And here's where I also discovered that I made a horrible error in the last exercise by actually naming this new contact. That's not even, elements of Java style correct, right? That should be a capital C. So we're gonna fix that in this WAD as well. And I hope you caught that in the last one and go, what the heck is he doing? My God, he can't even obey his own coding standards. It's terrible. So anyway, this public, so what we're going to do for this, the way we write this method, again, it's just kind of like stuff you gotta learn. So it's form contact form data equals form data, or form data, or declaring that type, is going to be equal to form.form contact form data dot class, and then we're going to say bind from request with no args, and what that does is that constructs an instance of form data by taking the parameter, the HTTP request that was done in the post, and doing the special magic internally to create that Java object. So now we got this form contact form data, but what we really want is a contact form data object. And the way we do that is by saying form data dot what's the problem here? Form data. Oh, I'm sorry. Data equals form data dot get. Okay, so now we've got a data object that actually is an instance of our contact form data class, which is kind of the kind of object that we want to be fiddling around with in the real world, or in our world of the business logic of this application. So at that point, we might want to say system.out.println got data plus system.out.printf %s %n new line, and then is it %n or /n? Forget. I think it's %n. Yeah. Okay, and then we're going to say data dot first name, data dot last name, data dot telephone. #n percent. Probably is %n because it's got to be a different character depending on the operating system. Okay, so then what we want to do is redisplay the form, and so we got to say return OK new contact and render, and we'll just say form data. Same thing, you know, just redisplay whatever it was we had before. Again, we get this red line, which is just bogus, and we returns new contact, the page to display a form, and then this is, well, we should say handles, what this should really say is handles the request to get the new contact page. And then here what we should say is handles the request to post form data from the new contact page. Okay, the page with the form data filled in that was just posted, something like that. Okay, so having made those two methods, so we got the form data, we printed out to play console. Now we have to update the routes file. So in the routes file, we basically want to take this, Command D to duplicate it, change this to post, and then we'll say this should be dot post contact. Oops, don't put that in a routes file. And let's just build the system with a Command F9. So you can see the make down here. Let's just see that we've got everything so far that we kind of want to have. Because we might not, maybe our tests aren't working. We're not going to really do too much testing right now. We're going to get to that a little later. Otherwise, I'm just going to blow you away with too much material in this module. Okay, everything compiles, that's good. So now we want to go to the form body, and we want to deal with that. Okay, so the first thing we want to do is we want to say at import helper dot underscore, and we do that because what we're next going to do is use this instance in the helper class called at form. And then our at form method is going to be passed a first parameter. This is this reverse routing thing, which is kind of cool. Application dot post contact, and then we got to get this into the form method. So class form horizontal. So the way that we do that in Scala land or Playland is to say this. Okay, and then we put this curly brace, and then we go down, we find the close form, and we put the closing curly brace, and then be sure to delete that form method. Otherwise, things are not going to work as you expect, and it could take you a while, as it took me once upon a time, to figure that out, that was the bug in my program. Okay, so now having done that, the next thing we want to do is deal with these inputs. And what we got to do here is we've got to get rid of this ID. And then we've got to say the following. We have to do a name, an ID, and a value. So name is going to be equal to, and then we're going to say at contact form. So here's our parameter up here that we're going to use, at contact form, and then we're going to pass it the name of the instance field, and then what we want to do is get the name value from that object. So that's kind of crazy. We got this contact form. We want to access the first name element and retrieve what we should use as the name field for that. And that's what goes in there. And then we're going to do the same thing for ID. So I'm just doing an option delete to get rid of the name, and then a Command D, and then option delete, and the same thing for name, ID, and value. Option delete value. Okay. So that's how we do this, and then we have to repeat that for these other ones. Okay, so we'll just take these three things and copy, paste, and now this time what we have to delete is the first name and make it last name. And I'll do it this way: last name, and then last name. Okay, and then finally for telephone, which I unfortunately called digits before, but we'll just go back to telephone. The telephone is the actual value in the backing class. So we'll paste it in, and we'll call this telephone, and then we'll do an option delete, which gets rid of one of the things, telephone, option delete, telephone. Okay, so name ID value. For each of these input fields, we've given it the appropriate value from here. Let's see. So we've added the import helper, replaced the form element, replaced the name ID value. It calls the contact form parameter. Okay, so that looks good. And so I think we're about at the time where we can run our application. Activator run. And go to localhost :9000. Okay, there's our current contacts. We go to new contact, and let's type Philip Johnson, my office phone number 808-956-3489. And we say add, and then we say got data, Philip Johnson, 808-956-3489. Sweet. Okay. So the last thing I really want to do is fix this new contact because it's killing me. So what we'll do is we'll select it, and then we'll do a Shift F6, which is our way of refactoring or changing names, and so we'll call this new contact. Press return, and then it's asking us if we want to do that refactoring, and I'm going to say do the refactor, even though it turns out in here this particular in the routes file you can see it's actually still lowercase, and I believe that's in URLs you typically don't have them be, because URLs are not case sensitive anyway, you don't actually use internal capitalization. That's kind of my gut feeling of the right way to do that. So we'll keep that new contact. And to see if everything is okay, why don't we, to see if everything is okay at this point, because we're not, because we're not yet doing testing for this. This is kind of crazy to do testing right now with these forms. I'm going to show you how to do testing of forms probably next week, but for right now, let's just run it and see that things are okay. So that's good. We go to new contact, we get our form, we say Philip Jones, just so we see something different, 999-888-1234. Press add, Philip Jones. Okay, so everything is working correctly. We could always run check style. That would be a good thing to do. Let's run check style. And we're going to find some stuff here. Oh yeah, we forgot the package info. So let's go to form data, propeller n, package info, add it to Git, and then run it again. And no suspicious code found. Okay, so we fixed that. So I think at this point we've basically done everything. Let's go bring back GitHub. Look at our changes. Added a couple new files. Made some modifications. All that looks totally appropriate. So finished the digits form practice WAD. Okay, commit and sync. Okay, so that was about 19 minutes. We're going to call that a 19-minute WAD, which is good. And then just to kind of show you what happens, let's say I'm happy with that. I want to now update my master branch to contain the current state of the system because we're going to move on. How would I do that? Okay, well, the way I recommend doing it is actually to go to branches, and then we're going to do a merge view, and we're going to say select a branch to merge, form 1, and we're going to put it into master. And so we're going to say merge branches. And then we're going to go back to the master branch. Okay, and there's some unsynced commits, so now we'll say sync. Okay, and I think we should be okay. So let's now go to digits view on GitHub, and if we go to, I believe it's graphs network. Okay, yeah. So we made a form 1, and we merged it back into master. Okay. All right, that's great, and I'll see you next time.